When someone asks me, how's the Snohomish market, I always think, which Snohomish? Because 98290 and 98296 can be very different real estate markets. Different types of homes, different price points, different locations, and sometimes very different competition. July is actually a really good example of why that matters. Because when you just look at the headline numbers, both areas look pretty strong. When you look a little closer though, there's more going on underneath those numbers. Market snapshot. Let's start with price. The median sale price in 98290 was $975,000. In 98296, it was $1,095,000. That's a difference of $120,000 between the two areas in July. But here's what's interesting. Even with that price difference, homes were selling at a pretty similar pace. 13 days for 98290 and 15 days for 98296. And sellers in both areas were ending up very close to their original asking price. 98290 was just a little under at 99.8, and 98296 was just right around 100%. So on paper, both markets look pretty strong, but there is another part of the story. Buyers have more homes to choose from right now. In both zip codes, more homes came onto the market in July than actually went pending. That doesn't mean homes aren't selling, they are. But when buyers have more choices, what happens inside those individual sales becomes even more important. What the sales actually show. And when I went through the individual sales, something kept showing up in both zip codes. Seller concessions. Some were fairly small, others were well over $20,000. And I think that's worth paying attention to. Because remember, 98290 sellers were getting 99.8% of their original asking price, and 98296 was at 100%. Those numbers sound incredibly strong, but a seller can get their asking price and still contribute thousands of dollars towards buyers' costs. The headline numbers tell us what homes sold for. The individual sales show us a little bit more about what it took to get them sold. So what does all of this mean if you were a Snohomish homeowner? Well, when buyers have more choices, you have to remember your home isn't competing with every house in Snohomish, but it is competing with the homes that a buyer's considering in their particular price range at that very moment. That is your competition. And we have to remember that the first thing we have to do is get the buyer through your front door. Then we need them to think, yeah, this could be the house for me. And then we need them to also continue that thought process and make sure that it has enough value for the buyer to actually make an offer. That's where pricing and preparation becomes super important. We can study the comparable sales. We can look at what's currently for sale. We can see what's pending. We can also see what has closed and what kind of credits buyers have been getting after a house is closed. This really helps us understand where your home can fit into the market. But ultimately, we can't make a buyer choose it. What we can do though is position your home to give it the strongest opportunity to be the one that they choose. What's changing around Snohomish? There's something else I want to start including in these updates. When people start talking about what's changing around Snohomish, some people know exactly what's going on, and some of us have just kind of have a little inkling on what's going on. They maybe might see construction and not really know what is happening. So let's start with Highway 9. If you have driven there lately, you probably have noticed all the construction around the Snohomish River Bridge. And it's actually a much bigger project than just the bridge. They're building a second bridge over the Snohomish River. The existing bridge will eventually carry northbound traffic, and the new bridge will carry southbound traffic. So when it's all finished, Highway 9 will have 4 lanes going across the river, which is great. But that's not all that they're doing. Highway 9 is also being widened between Marsh Road and 2nd Street. So what they're doing is they're building another overflow bridge, making changes around the 2nd Street ramps, and restoring the existing bridge. The Department of Transportation currently expects the overall project to be completed in 2028. And then there is Eastview Village. This is another big change coming to the area, and Eastview Village is a hot topic. If you haven't heard about it, it's the large development off of Cathcart Way near Glacier Peak High School and Little Cedars Elementary School. And this is a big one. The current plan is for a little over 1,300 residential units built over 12 phases. That includes single-family homes, townhomes, and apartments, along with 61,000 square feet of commercial space. And if you're trying to picture what 61,000 square feet actually looks like, think about the size of a standard grocery store plus something a little smaller, like maybe the size of a Trader Joe's. That's roughly the amount of commercial space that we are talking about. Now, that's just a size comparison. It could be off or it could change. I'm not saying that, and I'm also not saying what's going to be there or how that commercial space will ultimately be laid out. I have no idea. But it does give you an idea of how much commercial space we're talking about. And obviously, the communities right around the area are going to feel the development most directly, and Highway 9 right through there. I think that this is something the broader Snohomish area should definitely know about, because we're not just adding new homes, we're adding apartments, commercial development, and eventually a lot more people moving through this area. So I will continue to watch what happens with the Cathcart Way, traffic heading toward Highway 9 roads and infrastructure, and how the area changes as each phase is built. And from a real estate standpoint, I'm also curious in what happens when those new homes start coming onto the market. What will they be priced at? How quickly are they going to sell? How do buyers compare the new construction with established homes already here in Snohomish? Because 1,312 roughly new residential units sounds enormous. And just like the Highway 9 project, this is not happening overnight. We're going to need some patience. Eastview is being developed in phases, so the impact will definitely unfold, but over time. And that's exactly why I think it's worth following now. So when someone asks me, how's the Snohomish market? There really isn't one simple answer. 98290 and 98296 are very different. And what's even happening around Snohomish in the different areas is different and changing too. I think it's important to look beyond one headline or one statistic and understand what's actually happening here. Because when it's your home, what really matters is where your home fits into the market around it. And that's what I will keep paying attention to.